Hello and welcome to the Buckets and Tea NBA show. I'm your host, Cathryn Naiker. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. Today, joining me is freelance writer. She writes for Raptors HQ, CBC Comedy, Yahoo Sports, and a bunch of other publications. Please welcome Chelsea Leite. How you doing?
Hello. Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Despite our Raptors anxiety, we're going to get into all of that later. We always start with NBA first and then get into our Raptors woes. I just want to start off by letting everybody know that Raptors Republic is hosting an event, a live IRL in-person event. It's happening February 7th at the Rivoli, downtown Toronto at 6 p.m. A bunch of us are going to be there. I'm going to be there, which is cool. But I know there's going to be so many other people there that are fully advertised. Like I hear Blake Murphy's going to be there and Locked On Sean Woodley's going to be there. I think it's going to be a ton of us. So if you're, a huge Raptors Twitter person, come on out. It's going to be a great way to meet us, ask us questions and all that good stuff. So that's February 7th at the Rivoli. So please check that out. I know they've definitely, we've sold a bunch of tickets, but I do think there's a few left. So if you're interested, get on it and all that good stuff. Okay, Chelsea, before we get into our topics, we got to talk about the WNBA coming to Toronto. I think you and I are both excited about that. You cover the WNBA a little bit. Is that right?
Yeah, so I've done a bunch of freelance things for the WNBA. I'm hoping to cover it a lot more this season, but yeah, it's super exciting. I mean, we've been trying to get a team up in Toronto for years now, and I feel like the WNBA is finally starting to take expansion a little bit more seriously. So this is a great opportunity to kind of test the waters of what it would be like, and they're definitely seeing it as a test. So if you're interested at all, you got to show out and just, make it really hype.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also have a WNBA podcast called The Pickup, which I co-host with Freddie Rivas. And yeah, we're super excited. We're fingers crossed trying to get some sort of media credentials for this game. So hopefully that happens. But if not, we'll be there as fans. But yeah, we're going to be there either way. And I completely agree. So many people stop me and they're like, oh, when are we going to get a WNBA team? That's always everyone's first question. And it's if you are one of those people and you want a team here, you got to come out and support, because that is literally how we're going to show them. Because, I think a lot of people, they wear the orange hoodie and stuff, but they don't necessarily tune into the games.
Yeah.
That is a huge
it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
They don't make it easy.
They don't make it that easy. No, I mean, I've purchased League Pass, which I think is only $30 a year.
Yeah. Canadian $30. And it just went up this year. It used to be 16 American. Which was
God.
Yeah, those were the days.
Those were the days.
Now it's a little bit more, but it's still a good deal.
Yeah, it's still a good deal. I mean, it's a bit of a finicky site, I'll say. I was complaining about it pretty much all last season. But yeah, I mean, I do think, being a WNBA fan, you do kind of have to go a bit out of your way for it. But now that I've done that, my algorithms have aligned, and the content comes to me more easily now.
Yeah,
and it's really fun. And I feel even especially in the summer, I have so much more enjoyment watching actual basketball than I do spending 2 months of where is Kevin Durant gonna go just for him to go nowhere.
Literally.
You know what I mean?
It's true. And then I feel with Raptors Twitter, maybe that's just because that's the space I'm most condensed in, but there's so much going on every summer, and I'm just you know what, I'm just gonna watch Breanna Stewart hoop, and I'm going to give myself some peace, and you guys can discuss all the weird trade scenarios that you want. And I'm just going to enjoy some good basketball. So it works out.
Yes, I completely agree. It really helps me balance out my summer. And as huge hoop heads as we are, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are, you always have that feeling after an NBA season of oh man, this could be so many more months before there's more basketball. But really, by the time the NBA ends, you're ramping up to All-Star Weekend in the WNBA. And so it's actually a really good time to hop in.
Yep.
So yeah, that's happening May. I think it's 13th.
Yeah, it's the 13th.
Yeah.
And the fun part too is that I was writing about it yesterday as the news was coming out and trying to, blast it out there. And there were so many people in my network who are not basketball fans at all, but just, are supporting like women in general. And they were like, yeah, I definitely want to come now that it's coming to Toronto. So I think it's not just going to be the basketball community. I think it's going to bring a lot of like cool people, regardless if they watch basketball, just because they're like, oh, women's sports, that's cool. Like, I want to support either way. So I feel like it's going to be a really fun day.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, let's get into some NBA. So, I don't do too much Lakers talk on this podcast on purpose, but I do want to talk a little bit about LeBron James because he is going to pass the all-time scoring record at some point this season. And a lot of people, based on his current average, which is near 30 points a game, which is absolutely wild, especially at his age. If he keeps up that average, he is suspected to hit that record February 7th against Oklahoma City. So I guess I wanted to ask you, do you think he's going to be able to keep up this average? When do you think he's going to hit this? Do you think it might happen even before February 7th? Do you think it might happen post All-Star? Where do you think this is going to land?
It definitely depends. I mean, he's obviously one to sometimes rest and sometimes, take games off when he wants to kind of rehab injuries or back-to-backs and stuff like that. So I think it might not be February 7th. I would say either like right before the All-Star break or right after. And I feel like that would also be good, like marketing wise. Not that he probably personally cares about that, but in terms of the NBA, that would kind of work out for them. But yeah, it's definitely really cool. He's obviously an iconic player. And based on the fact, I read something this season that said he spends about $1 million every year on his body.
Oh, yeah.
Is insane. And obviously makes sense because
I wish.
But right, same. I spend about $4 a year on my body. So, it's fine. But, because of that, and we've seen that on both sides, like in every sport, the fact that players are able to play at this level for so many years is just a testament to how much they spend on their body, which is incredible. You think about Sue Bird, who played until professional basketball until she was 41. Diana Taurasi is 41 now and still going into the season this year. You think about tennis players playing up until that age and beyond. Like, it's so cool that we're in this age now where they have the ability to spend that money on their body. And so we're seeing these long, incredible careers. And I really don't think LeBron is planning on winding down anytime soon. I know he says stuff about his son and, he's going to retire after that or whatever. Like, and if he wants to retire, that's completely his own thing. But I think physically he's going to be able to upkeep that 30 points per night as long as he wants to, because he is spending that money on his body and he does have the resources. And I mean, barring any like big injury, which I hope not, because that's terrible for anyone. I think he's definitely going to be able to upkeep that as long as he wants to.
Yeah, I think as long as he's healthy, he's absolutely going to hit this record. I think he is determined to hit this before All-Star weekend.
True,
because I do feel like when I think about LeBron, I do think of someone who is a master of their own narrative. And I think he's obsessed with his own narrative, and his legacy to a degree that maybe we're not used to seeing, And I think he wants to go into All-Star weekend just talking about this record, breaking it, what it means to him as a Laker, blah, blah, blah. I don't think he wants to talk about the team's record or what their playoff aspirations are or Westbrook or Anthony Davis's injuries. Like, he doesn't want to talk about any of that. So he is going to do everything he can to keep the conversation in his favor, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. He is, and he's earned that right to be able to want that for himself. And it kind of is bad, the situation that he's in right now. Like, you think about all these other players on his level. You think about Steph Curry, you think about, players on the women's side or like tennis players or, those are just the sports I follow. You think about hockey players, all that kind of stuff. And, usually when you're a player at that caliber, you're always on like a championship level team. Like, your presence just automatically makes you a championship level team. And I mean, you think about the Lakers, and sure, LeBron automatically makes anybody a contender, but the poor guy is kind of just, carrying them on his back right now. He's supposed to have AD, who's unfortunately struggled with injuries, and there's the whole Westbrook thing. And so, yeah, I definitely agree that he is frustrated, and he has in my head, a little bit of a right to be frustrated with the situation that he's in right now. So yeah, being able to control his narrative is, and especially at something like All-Star Weekend, which, is all about press and fans and all that stuff, he will definitely want to go in there with a good talking point. And you think about when Steph Curry broke the 3-point record last year, like that was such a great night. And I think everybody in the NBA like community kind of came together and celebrated that. And it was really fun. And
at Madison Square Garden too.
Exactly. Yeah. So I feel like LeBron, especially like you said, the kind of person he is, I feel like he might not do it at OKC. He might be like, maybe I'll rest tonight. I don't know. But
like, let me do this at home at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Either at home or like, against like a competitor like that, or maybe I don't know what the Lakers
I haven't looked
deep into their if he went to Cleveland, that would be fun, like just different scenarios in which he could like again control that narrative and make it like kind of more of a hype night. But he I'm not sure if he'll do it that night specifically, but
yeah, I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen before All-Star break. And honestly, like, it is truly historic. I mean, I don't remember exactly what year Kareem Abdul-Jabbar like retired, but I want to say it was maybe like 82 or something. So we're talking about something that happens once every 40 years.
Yeah.
If that. And, I mean, maybe we'll see it more again because like you were talking about how like sports science has elevated so much and people can play longer. Yeah. So, maybe it is something we'll see again in our lifetimes, but it's very special. And I think, I don't know if I have him as my greatest of all time, and I'm not going to get into that debate today, but he is certainly like the greatest of his generation. And I think it's certainly noteworthy. So, I'm excited to see it. I'm definitely going to tune in to like all the Lakers games like leading up to it because I don't want to miss it. Like I'm the type of person where I'm like, I really want to see that live.
Yeah. So I mean, I watched the Steph Curry one live and that was cool. And it was just, just a fun night. And I mean, I'm a big Steph Curry fan. So like, it was hype. I'm like you said, I'm not sure where LeBron lands on my personal list, but it's still cool. And it's still fun to see the whole community, regardless of what team you support, just kind of come together and celebrate something. I think that's something we see, especially as a Toronto fan in the WNBA a little bit more, because it's less about like my specific team and more about the community. So it's nice when those moments come to the NBA because sometimes the space can be a little toxic.
A little bit.
So, yeah.
Very true. Very true. Speaking of toxic, let's talk about All-Star. That was a stupid segue. I didn't actually mean that, but I want to talk about the voting. So we have some early results to look at. Our Pascal Siakam is, sixth in front court players. Kevin Durant's injured. I don't think he's going to come back and play All-Star. So I think there's a world where he can make it in as like an injury reserve, unless we all just like rally for him. But we're all kind of feeling dejected right now. But I wanted to ask you, based on this list so far, these early returns, like who do you think is possibly the biggest snub, and who do you think should be there if there's anyone missing for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say like snubs when it comes to the NBA. Like, I don't know, people have different opinions about what exactly constitutes as like an all-star caliber player. I mean, some people say that if your team isn't winning, then you shouldn't be on the thing. So that's the whole thing about Pascal Siakam is like, he's not, he shouldn't be on the starters because the Raptors aren't doing well. But I don't know. I think the players, in the end, it's a popularity contest. Like, you can't deject it to anything else. Sure, if you're playing well, you deserve to be there. But in the end, especially with the starters, it's going to be a popularity contest. And I mean, so yeah, I get Kevin Durant's going to make it in no matter what. It's just a matter if he plays.
Oh, and he deserves to be there for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. He's an excellent player still, again. And so, I don't know. The ones that get me are the ones that are like not the like LeBron, KD, Steph Curry level players. They're kind of like the mid players that like get in every year, despite the fact that they like have been injured the whole time or like have only played 10 games or like something like that. And it's just because there's a big fan base in that city and people vote and whatever. So, I mean, I think Pascal Siakam, I hope would make, like kind of the bench or the reserves or whatever you the specific term for it is, but or the coaches vote and stuff like that. I think the thing that Pascal Siakam has that like is working in his benefit is the fact that he just plays like really good, solid basketball all of the time. And I think that coaches and players and people in the media who actually like understand the game a little bit more than, people just voting on Twitter, he has is like the fact that his game is incredible and people have to respect that no matter what. Well, they don't have to, but it would be nice if they did. So, I mean, I have hope for him. We saw Fred get in last year, and I think based on how they're playing and what the caliber of player they are, I think based on the fact that Fred got in last year, I think the Siakam is playing better. So, I mean, I have hope.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think, I also still have hope for Siakam making it. I agree. Like when you look at the East, I mean, it's Kevin Durant, Giannis, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, and then Pascal. I can't, all those guys deserve to be an all-star. So it's not like, there's any sort of like, who the hell? I mean, I will say in terms of the East guards, Kyrie Irving, I mean, these numbers are, a few days old, so I don't know where they are at today. Over 3 million votes. I don't know. Know how Kyrie Irving gets votes. I mean, yes, he's having a good season, but it's like, I know there's a lot of people who watch sports and don't care. I'm not one of those people. I care. I care about who you are. I'm not giving you my vote on an all-star ballot after the chaos that was going on just, in November. That's just not something I would ever do. That baffles me.
It's not even like it's not like it's that was like the only thing he's ever like said that was insane in his lifetime. That's like the third thing last year. Like that's the one that perplexes me. I'm like, LeBron James, personally, I don't know. As a player, he's great. Kyrie, same thing. He's a great player, but there's just some things that like as a person, my conscience can't just be like, yeah, you're a good basketball player. I don't know. It's just, that one baffles me every time. I'm like, the fact that it is a popularity contest. Sure, if he got in because like the coaches or the players or whatever were like, yeah, he's a great basketball player, I'd be like, okay. But the fans, I'm like, come on, guys. Like, there's so many better people to support in this league than him.
Like literally anyone. Anyone. Yeah, I mean, I think like, also with the conferences too, I'm also pro just like mixing up all the conferences for All-Star. I don't think East and West should matter as much because the West is so stacked and has been for frankly over 20 years. Yeah. I don't know why we're still doing this. It's because, true. You look at the West guards and it's like Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Ja Morant, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Klay Thompson. I mean, it's like, it's nuts. And then you have poor. Okay, I'm gonna make a crazy case here right now. Aaron Gordon is the second best player on the best team in the league. Yeah, and he isn't on the list.
Yeah, it's hard.
I mean, you've got Damian Lillard here, Devin Booker, Westbrook is somehow sixth, but you've got Devin Booker. It's like there's just so many, De'Aaron Fox. Like there's just so many, and we need to abolish the conferences for All-Star.
Yeah,
and sorry, go ahead.
Even a little bit like the positions gets me a little bit because it's like you think about you get a starting five for each team. And then it's like the 3 guards and the 2 like 4 or centers or whatever, the front court and the back court or whatever. But then like, I don't know. I forget if the WNBA did this with awards or All-Star as well. But like, I know specifically with awards, they just got rid of the positions. They're like,
right.
First team is first team. If you're a good player, you're a good player. Yeah. So the conferences, is definitely the big one because there's kind of the imbalance where you look at the East and like the people at the bottom of the list of the East. And I'm like, there's people in the West who are much better than this player.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
East. And so I agree with the conferences and even a little bit with the positions. I feel like the positions thing people will kind of disagree with me on because I don't know. I as a Raptors watcher, I kind of am slightly intrigued by the whole positionless basketball idea. So I mean, not that the Raptors are doing very well at it, but I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into all things 6ix9ine vision soon. Yeah, no, that's cool. Let's talk about mid-season awards. There's always a lot of mid-season awards that are given out, but I just want to know, in your opinion, which team in the NBA, just for the sake of having some positivity before we get into all the craziness with the Raptors, which team do you think deserves an A+?
An A+. Ooh, that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple teams that for sure deserve A's. In terms of an A+, I mean, like the Bucks are up there, Celtics are up there. I mean, you think about the West, like the West is weird because like now Phoenix is like bad. I don't know. It's like it's like a weird thing happening right now.
I mean, I think the Denver Nuggets and the Memphis Grizzlies deserve A+ this season. I think, bringing back Jamal Murray, it's been difficult. He is doing well, but he's kind of molded into their third option on that team. And I feel like, they're the kind of team that's been knocking on that door for the past few years now. They had to go through their injuries and stuff like that. I feel like they are poised to make a very deep run this year in the playoffs.
And I mean, they have the MVP from, the past couple of years, right?
Past couple of years, I don't think he'll get it a third year in a row because people just don't do that. No, but that's not to say he isn't playing like an MVP this year.
For sure.
I think they deserve it. I mean, Memphis is always just, the most entertaining team to watch. They haven't lost a single game in 2023 yet. So that's pretty exciting. They've won their last 11 games in a row. They are the most exciting teams to me. Obviously, the Warriors are still in the mix, but you can't give them an A+ for the regular season so far. Definitely not. I think it's those two teams. I think they're fascinating to me. I mean, Memphis has started knocking on that door, but they haven't quite had the same number of reps in the playoffs as the Nuggets. I know they went out in the first round 2 years, but they went to the Western Finals in the bubble. I think when that team's healthy, they're very exciting. So those are my two A+ teams this year.
And they're super fun to watch. Like I know Memphis had a little run in Toronto and I got to go and it was really cool. And just John Moran is just such a likable guy. Like I know he sometimes says stuff, but he's just so entertaining to watch and follow. And he's so active on Twitter. He's really active when it comes to women's basketball players. He's just when you look at him on a very surface level, he's so likable. Obviously, sometimes you can't look too deep, and I don't know very much about him, so I don't want to just be he's a great guy, but not know much about him. But on a surface level, when you look at him, he's incredibly fun to follow. You just want him to succeed, and he's just putting on a show, which the NBA is obviously going to want because that's in the end they're just putting on a show, right? And I agree with the Nuggets as well, and it would be really cool to get as someone who grew up in Cambridge, Ontario, to get the Larry O'B to Kitchener, Ontario would be really cool. I'm sure Jamal would bring it back. And I would just pretend I'm from Kitchener for a day, but Kitchener. But
I feel like that's only a big deal in Kitchener. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I don't think
nobody outside the Tri-City, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge is gonna give a shit. But in there, they're gonna be you're not from Kitchener. But random Cambridge, Ontario moment there. But so that would be cool. So definitely two teams that are enjoyable to follow that I wouldn't mind.
Okay, let's get into our Raptors Homer moment here. It's been a weird week. We're going to get into all of it. But first, I got to talk about CJ McCollum. So he has a podcast of his own, as many of us do, and myself included, obviously. And he basically said that he has, he alluded to the fact that he has some sort of insider information, and he couldn't say specifically because that would be tampering, but that he knows that there are players on the team that aren't happy. What do you make of those comments?
Well, first of all, when I read those comments and then also read that he's the president of the Players Association.
Oh, yeah.
I was
it's a conflict of interest, first and foremost.
First of all, giant conflict of interest. Second of all, you're not on the team. You don't have any ties to the team. In what world do you have the right to be like talking about that, like as an NBA player? I don't know. It felt kind of like weird and gossipy to me. And I get the fact that like everybody and their brother has a podcast and like that's what we do. We just talk about, we analyze. But I feel like as like media and fans and people who are outside of the sport, that's like our right and our thing. And I mean, I get the fact that players are going to talk, but something about that, just like the whole mix of it, the fact that he's the president of the Players Association, he's not on the team. He is just like on this podcast, just talking about random stuff, probably just for clicks and whatever. Cause
he definitely did it for clicks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like the Raptors, like Twitter online spaces definitely has like a reputation of like throughout the league with people. And so I think he definitely was pandering to that a little bit. And I mean, regardless of if it's true, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was true. You know, basketball players want to win. Our team's not winning. Okay, that makes sense, you know, if some of them are a little disgruntled with their situation. But I mean, is it his place to say? No.
Yeah, I think like number one, for sure, that's a conflict of interest. Number two, he absolutely did this for clicks. Number three, yeah, it's everyone in media knows that Raptors fans are easily baited. Mm-hmm. So that's why you get a lot of blasphemous takes from a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, also, lastly, he didn't say anything we don't kind of already know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, obviously, with this much losing, you're not going to be happy. Are they looking to move people at the trade deadline? Yes, it's been widely reported amongst literally everyone.
Yeah.
So he didn't really reveal anything. It's just sort of the way he did it that he was like, ooh, like he threw in the word tampering, which is such a baity kind of word, and just made it seem like he knew something very specific, which maybe he does. And like, you know, the obvious choice would be like Gary Trent Jr. because they're former teammates. But yeah. I mean, again, that doesn't mean he doesn't have friendships with other people in the league, you know. But it was just like, yeah, no one's that surprised. I do think it was a touch inappropriate. But also, you know, Gary's a free agent at the end of this season, so he's gonna, you know, if he's really unhappy, he's not gonna be here for too much longer. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird position because the Raptors are definitely, I think we all were kind of led astray a little bit last year when everybody was like, yeah, it's a development here. And then they did a lot better than everybody expected. So, I mean, I personally think that like we're on a good track in terms of development. And I think we're in a very like middle space right now. I never expected the Raptors to like make a run this year or last year or anything. I think people, again, we're a very reactionary fan base. And I think that's could be a tough place to be in as a player, especially when you're at that age like Gary Trent Jr. is. He just turned 24 yesterday. You know, and he's at that midpoint where he's really about to take like, I think, a really big stride in his ability. And obviously he's the kind of guy who wants to be rewarded, which I don't blame him for. So, and I mean, in a league where it's a lot about what people are saying about you, to want to get yourself being talked about is, you know, probably beneficial to him because then people will kind of see his name on places and teams and stuff like that. So, I mean, like you said, is it wrong? Probably not. Was it CJ McCollum's place to say on a random podcast? I don't think so. But I mean, at least like leak your source to someone and like, you know, let them do it. But I don't know. I think it's just it kind of makes him seem like, I don't know. I feel like there's such like a narrative in sports where it's like, you got to be focused about the game. And to some extent that's kind of dumb, but I feel like there's a certain extent where you just like, dude, like, focus on what you got to focus on your team, and instead of just like spewing gossip on a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of players now, they spend a lot of time thinking about their post-playing career and try to lay down that groundwork early.
Yeah,
you know, so I think that's kind of what he's doing. And so, you know, I have respect for him for that. But and it's honestly, I mean, we're only salty because we're Raptors fans. If we weren't Raptors fans, we'd be like, this is wildly entertaining. I want more.
Yeah. I mean, everything I hear about the Lakers, I'm like, give me more. I need it. But as soon as it's my team, I'm like, no, those are my players.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, speaking about the doom and gloom of our team, I was reading in Sports Illustrated yesterday that there's interest in DeAndre Ayton, which is intriguing. What are your thoughts on a move like that to acquire DeAndre Ayton?
Oh man, it's tough because in the end, the Raptors need certain things. I mean, we as like a fan base think that the Raptors need certain things. I'm not sure if our hopes kind of align with the front office. But it wouldn't be a bad move. It would. Sure, there's a bunch of talk that DeAndre Ayton hasn't exactly like held up to the standard that he was supposed to based on, when he was drafted. And that's one thing. I know he suffered from injury and stuff like that. And so you can't, blame him too much for that. I'm sure he has, a very great future ahead of him. And so if the move were to happen, I wouldn't be mad about it. And I don't know. I feel like I'm at a place with this team and this front office where they're not going to do what people expect them to do. And so already in my head, I'm like, they're not going to do that because that's the obvious choice. So I don't know. Maybe that's just my perspective on it. And I think that they're definitely focusing on like who's a free agent and who they want to who they want to give money to this season. And so I don't know. I have not mixed feelings about it. I think it would be a good option for us because we do need that height and that position, and someone who's kind of like a starter caliber. But I also am not getting my hopes up too much because we kind of know at least the recent history of the moves that this team has made.
Yeah. So one thing I just want to clarify is that this article does not state who would be traded for DeAndre Ayton. It's just being reported that there's an interest in him. Okay. The interest in him makes a lot of sense. He would fill a lot of holes for us. He would be on paper a good fit. My hesitation with him is, there's just a lot of talk around him about his attitude and him not having a good attitude and him just being the kind of guy that was just playing to his second contract in the NBA and has really dropped off since he signed that second contract. And when I look at the Phoenix Sun, I just don't understand why he is in such conflict with the other people there. I mean, Monty Williams, by all accounts, is a good coach and a nice guy. Like, nobody has a bad thing to say about him. This is a team that has championship aspirations. Why would he be more motivated to play for us than he would be for them?
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I mean, there's the Kawhi example of he wasn't happy in San Antonio and then he came here and we won. But we knew that he wasn't happy because he didn't like how they handled his injury. So there was like a clear through line there. We knew what he wasn't happy with. We knew we could do things differently here. We really started the whole load management thing. Well, no, they kind of started it in San Antonio a bit, but they just didn't do it with him the way he felt that they should. They actually did start it. But in any case, I mean, we just don't know, at least the public, the fans, us, we don't know why exactly DeAndre Ayton has been so unhappy in Phoenix. So that's the thing that really that I'm very hesitant on, because I just don't think we and the quote unquote vibes of this season would revamp this guy.
No, yeah. And I mean, you talk back to the Kawhi thing, but that was such a different atmosphere and such a different team. Like, everybody knew as soon as Kawhi came in, you knew that he was the one missing piece and that this team was automatically like a contender. Obviously, DeAndre Ayton coming to this team right now in this current situation does not automatically make the Toronto Raptors a contender. And so the vibes, like you said, the vibes are different. Again, not to like go too heavily on vibes, but vibes narrative. But yeah, I don't know. It's a different situation. And like you said, like his attitude is definitely a problem, and maybe that was the mood with Kawhi as well. But like they're two very different caliber players. You know, you think about where Kawhi was and even where he is now and what kind of player he is, and DeAndre Ayton and where he is in his career and stuff like that. It's a very different situation. And if he's unhappy, like you said, in a place like Phoenix, it has a very good, I mean, in the team, not higher up, obviously, we all know that, but that has like a good reputation of being, you know, a good place to play basketball, and is a championship contender despite their recent record. It just doesn't make sense. And I don't know if he just isn't happy with certain members of the team, if he isn't happy with how, again, they've treated him. I don't know. And like you said, I don't think it's going to change coming here because they're, you know, at this point, it doesn't really look like the Raptors this season anyway are going to go very far. So I don't know what the
yeah, I mean, unless he like wanted to be a part of some sort of rebuilding process for some reason, then that would be interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, and then the other one, I mean, I didn't put this in our rundown, but there's just so much Jakob Poeltl talk.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do like Jakob Poeltl. I do think he'd be a good fit on this team, but all the reports I've read state that they want 2 first-round picks for him. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Jakob Poeltl is worth 2 first-round picks.
No.
Especially if we're not going to be a playoff team. Mm-hmm. We really want to hold on to those picks.
Yep.
So, you know, I just don't see that being the right direction either. So, you know, I think it's as much as we're all like, you got to make a move, you got to get this player, you got to get this player. Yes, we definitely need to make a move, but it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
You know?
It's hard to like see, especially this team. Like they've been so inconsistent this season. Like when they're good, they're really good. And when they're bad, they're terrible. So it's so hard to kind of like judge the ceiling on them. It's so hard to be like, okay, this is how far they could go. And they're young too. Like you think about the fact that like their starters are all like under 30 years old. And even like, I mean, Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam being like 28 or however old they are. I think they're in the 28, 29 range, both of them. But the fact that like those are your veterans. And I mean, we have a few other veterans. You think about like Thad Young and stuff like that. But like when you think about like core people on this team, it's such a young team and so many of them haven't hit their ceiling yet. And they're all very, I think, just like eager to succeed and to make a name for themselves. And I think that leads to inconsistencies. And so, yeah, there definitely needs to be a move made, but it's hard to tell like what exactly is our main fault because right now there's a lot of faults, but like, what's the main one? You know, what's the big move that you make in order to, I'm not of the belief that we need to blow it up. I think a few little things over this season and next season could really help. But it's hard to tell like what the exact move is to make.
Yeah, I have been very not blow it up this whole season. I think, you know, the talent we do have is really strong. Mm-hmm. It's just really hard to leverage who we have for more. But also too, like, and I don't know if it's just because honestly, I just hardly had any sleep last night or what it is. But after this Milwaukee game, we're recording this early on Thursday, the 19th, by the way. This is going to come out on the 20th. So just after this Milwaukee game, I'm just so like, I was so disappointed in that loss, especially after coming off the New York game, which was such a great win. And I know it's a back-to-back, but it's no Giannis, no Middleton. And Brook Lopez gets ejected in the middle of the fourth quarter and we still don't win. Like, that is brutal, man. Like, you have to get those games. You have to get those games. Like, God, what a crappy loss.
Yeah. And I'm definitely been of the belief that like I believe in the core of our team. And I really think that one of the bigger problems lies within the depth of the team and the fact that there's not very much trust in the bench and the fact that the bench isn't as deep as it could be. And so I think a lot of, you know, our problems come in those last quarters and those closing out of games. You think about all of the games that we've lost by under 10 points.
Yeah.
And you think about also the fact that most of our core plays like 40 minutes a night, if not more. That's such a huge problem. I mean, you can't ask, especially on a back-to-back, for these guys to be playing 40 minutes a night and still be playing the like high level caliber basketball. I mean, I get that that's their job, but like at the same time, it's a lot to ask. And I just really wish the Raptors had someone consistent to go to on the bench that is always going to go and get you a bucket, who's going to be that sixth man. And there is a few options of people who could turn into that. I'm a very big like Precious Achiuwa believer. But right now he's not consistent. Obviously he's coming back from injury. You have Malachi Flynn, who's very up and down, so I think that the Raptors, one of
I'm
the
not
big
I'm not
problems
as
there.
big of a Precious Achiuwa believer as I think a lot of people are.
Yeah.
I feel bad saying that because I like the guy, but it's just like, I don't know. Yes, he's coming back from injury right now and he hasn't been very consistent, but he really wasn't very consistent most of last season.
Yeah.
He kind of found a little bit of his stride as we went into the playoffs, but he's been with us for, a season and a half now. Yeah. And I've yet to see any kind of real consistency from him. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just me. I'm not a full-on analyst. So, there's people like Samson and stuff who would disagree with me, and that's legit because they all probably know more than I do. But yeah, I've just, based on what I can observe, it's like we just haven't seen any consistency from him, really. And even in that New York game that we won, I mean, there was that one play, was it in overtime or like just before the overtime, when like Precious was standing at the top of the 3-point line and we pass him the ball and then he has to shoot. And a part of me is just like, why are you even there?
That aged me.
Yes.
Oh my God. I was sitting here because I was covering that game and I'm watching it on TV, and like he got the ball, and as soon as he got the ball in his hands, I'm like, he's gonna shoot a 3-pointer. And I'm like, no, like why? And like I know that sometimes they go in, and when they do go in, they're very fun, but oh man, every time
the whole play made sense.
Yeah.
It was just he can't consistently make that shot. It's like all the ball movement in the play made sense.
Yeah.
And then it gets to him because there's just no one else because Siakam fouled out. And then you're just like, well, shit, this is literally, I actually think that play, if anything, encompasses so much of what's been wrong with this season. It's like so much is working and then it just doesn't work.
Right at the end. It's just like, there's one bad choice like it's made and then it all falls apart.
Like, I don't know. Precious is still a very young player. Yeah. And I don't know who he wants to be as a player. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if he wants to be the guy that hits that shot, he needs to put in the work. And maybe he is. Maybe he is, and I don't know. Yeah. But you need to be putting in the work to be that guy. And I don't know if that's really where his focus has been. Or maybe he just found himself there. Yeah. Like he wasn't even intentional. He just found himself there, and he found himself with the ball, and he found himself with the clock like running down, which could also very well be the case. But then again, it's like, then put yourself in a position to succeed.
Oh, yeah. And I remember that shot specifically. He had like 5-10 feet of space ahead of him. I'm like, if you were like 5 feet closer to the basket, you would have had such a better chance. But yeah. Oh, man. And I think about that, too. Like a couple games ago, Christian Coloco made that crazy like clutch shot at the end. And after the game in his conference, he was like, yeah, I take those shots every single day in practice. The whole team sees me practicing that shot. And so, Gary Trent Jr. trusted him to take that shot because he knows he's been practicing, and it happened to go in. It could have not, but I just, like you were saying, like, we don't know what kind of work he's putting in, but I mean, if you want to make that shot, you definitely have to be putting in the work. And I mean, hopefully he is, because that would be a great asset for the Raptors to have, because I feel like they're invested in Precious Achiuwa as a player, but yeah, ooh, that was rough.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a blow up the bench scenario. You know what I mean?
I mean, I wouldn't be mad about that. That's kind of where my like allegiance lies right now. I'm like, I'm a little too, and especially as someone who like covers the team, I'm a little too like attached to the core, which is like a fault of mine. I will admit it. But I like see people say like mean stuff, because like all of Raptors Twitter these days is just mean stuff, and I'm like, you're being mean to them. It's not nice. But I don't know, just something about the bench where I'm like, we need more. Like we need, I don't know. Like I feel like the core's been playing good enough, and it's just the fact that we don't have depth that is really hurting us.
Yeah, and like, we mentioned Vision 6-9 earlier. I've said this multiple times on the podcast. I'd love to get your opinion on it.
Yeah.
I love the idea of versatility and every player being able to play every position, but I don't understand why everyone needs to be the same height.
Yeah.
This is the part that truly baffles me.
Yeah.
Why would everyone have to be the same height? That makes no sense to me. Because to me, it's like, as long as there's quote unquote big men in the league, 7-footers,
Yeah.
you're going to need a 7-footer. Are you not? Or at least someone close to that. Because even like with these games against the Bucks, like the 2 we've had recently, Siakam having to guard Brook Lopez, I personally find really frustrating. Not to say he can't guard Brook Lopez, but ideally you have some other guy, a bigger guy, boxing him out to give Pascal Siakam some space.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I'm a big fan of versatile basketball, positionless basketball. I like the idea that your center is going to be able to play make. And I mean, you see like Scottie Barnes, he's not a center, but like you think about that kind of kid who's like that size and even taller, being able to play make and have the vision is like a great vision to have for basketball. And I think we're heading in that direction as more players develop shots. And there's so much more, like we were saying before, sports science to help you elevate your game more. But yeah, I don't understand the fact that like they all have to be the same height. And like, even when we do draft like a 7-footer, someone taller, we have Christian Koloko now, who we just drafted, who knows what his ceiling is going to be. But like, you can't put Christian Koloko on Giannis. Like he's like half his size, like when you think about muscle. And so you need you need someone who you can go to in those situations, like Giannis and Embiid and those people. I mean, when you play a team like Brooklyn, like sure, like, they don't have like a big, ominous 7-foot giant presence. So that works and it's cool to experiment with. But this league is always going to have 7-footers and they're getting better and better by the day. And so you need someone who's also going to be able to give players like Siakam and, the space that they need to operate, because, Pascal Siakam operates best when he's in that 4 position. And I agree with you. I feel bad for the fact that he's having to, guard these centers when he's one of the best players in the NBA right now, and he's not being allowed to like play the game that he is best at. And so, and I mean, I was looking at like a draft prospect 2023 thing. And it was like with the 6th pick, the Raptors pick a 7-9 or a 6-9 forward. Sorry. And I'm like, again, literally like, okay, we did it with Scottie Barnes and it's kind of working, but are you going to do that again?
They will.
They will, yeah.
They probably will. It'll drive me absolutely crazy.
Oh, man. I mean, we all ate our words with Scottie Barnes, but like how many times is that going to happen? Not as many.
Yeah, we did. And I think, it took the front office a lot of guts. Let's use the word guts. It took them a lot of guts to make that move, I think, over all the talk over Jalen Suggs. And that obviously turned out to be a great move for us. But yeah, I just don't get the whole everyone needs to be the same height thing. It really baffles me. And, there's other things, I talked about how it would help Siakam, but I also think it would really help Fred. Like when we had Marc Gasol on the team, I feel like Fred and Gasol would have these like awesome pick and rolls with each other, and it would help give him space. And I just think it would help the team a lot. Like it's not just Pascal and who he's guarding. Like it's just everyone. It's spacing.
It's our body too. Our
defense has also been super lacking. And I'm not the analyst to explicitly say why, but we're supposed to be this really strong defensive team, and we just haven't been. And a part of me is just like, I'm not sure if it's just because we don't care anymore, if we're just feeling dejected or what it is. But it's like, yeah, I think maybe and I don't know how, but if there was a way we could leverage our bench for a stronger bench, or at least a couple more players that Nick Nurse could trust, because I mean, the minutes issue is a real issue. But also like our bench doesn't win minutes. So it's like, as much as I'm like, Nick Nurse plays their starters too much, our bench needs to start winning minutes so our starters can really rest. And so we can really like actually win, like you said, a lot of these games that we're losing by less than 10 points.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's been a couple unlucky moves too. I mean, I watched a video that Samson had put out a couple weeks ago where he kind of went through all of the different moves that they've made in the past couple years.
Yeah.
And you think about the one that really gets me is letting Yuta Watanabe go for Hernan Gomez. And you think about what Utah's doing right now, and I'm like, oh, it hurts. It hurts. Because like that would have been great. You have him come on and we need a shooter, and he is doing so well right now and has just, kind of blown up on the nets. And it's just those little tiny moves that like I said, it's not the core. It's like the random guys that you just kind of let go because you want something else or you think you need something else. And then it just kind of doesn't work out in the way that you thought it would. So,
yeah. And as biased as I am for Nick Nurse, everyone who listens to this podcast knows that I do think, Utah hitting that, it wasn't the game-winning shot, but one of the game-winning shots against us was a real, I think, FU to the team. And I do think that is an indictment on Nurse for sure, that he didn't see Utah's potential and play him more. And, when I've seen Utah do interviews and stuff, he talks about how much the Nets have encouraged him to shoot. And that's what's given him the confidence and everything. And yeah, we needed to do that. And as much as I'm saying blow up the bench, maybe we need to be doing that more on our front too. But it's just tough when you don't have anyone else in your, 6 to 8 man, rotation to help carry the load. So tricky stuff there for sure. I don't know if you want to have any other say about this crazy Raptors season so far.
Oh man, no, it's been not what we expected in a good and a bad way. I think it's just, there's some stuff that's really good about it and some stuff that's really bad. And I think the vibes are, especially with the fan base, I'm in a very weird middle position where I go and see the games as a media perspective, but then I'm also like on Twitter and like kind of also a fan. So it's a very weird space to be in. But yeah, it's we'll see. The next month is going to be really important. So we'll have a lot more to talk about once that happens.
For sure. Well, what is the difference between the two?
The two
like spaces, like being with the media space and being with because we all know what the fan space is like.
Yeah.
So tell us what the media space is like.
Yeah. So going into the media as someone who was very like immersed into the fan like online experience is definitely very weird. You think about all of the like mainstays of like Raptors media that you see online. I'm not going to name any of them by names because you all know who they are, but like seeing them in person and interacting with them and like, having that perspective of like knowing everything that the coaches say, everything that the team say, being able to feel the vibes, again, that's the only word that's coming to my head of like
how it podcast. Yeah, new drinking game every time we say
vibes. Yeah, but being able to feel what the atmosphere is like when we lose, when we win, is very like, I feel like I have a lot more empathy for a lot of people, not just in the media, but also in the team. I have a lot more, I feel a lot worse when they lose because I'm like, these poor guys, like you just see it when they come to talk to the media after. You can feel it in the room. They're tired. They're, disappointed. They're trying. Like I think the main thing is just, it's made me a lot more empathetic for everyone in every situation, the media, the broadcast, the players, the coaches, the staff, everyone. I'm like, oof, like when you're losing, when you're not performing to your full potential, it's kind of like a whole thing. And then I go back to the fan perspective where a lot of people are quick to make judgments, and it makes me a little bit more like, come on guys, like let's just think about this a little bit more. Like let's not be as reactionary. So I think it softened me a lot more.
Yeah, that's fair. No, and I appreciate that. And I think maybe some people maybe need to hear that a bit more, Yeah. But in any case, keeping up with my bias for Nick Nurse, it is time for our Nick Nurse Hottie Highlight of the week. I will ride the segment into the ground. I don't care. So I'm here for it. Our Hottie Highlight this week comes from, our own at Twitter at Doc Naismith. He, during the whole Brook Lopez, Gary Trent Jr. scuffle, headband fiasco, found a video of Nick Nurse staring Brook Lopez down. And I was like, this is what I needed.
Yeah.
This is what I needed. This is the hottie highlight I needed, you know, for everyone that's saying vibes are off, people aren't happy, blah, blah, blah. When literal push come to shove,
Yeah, literally.
He's got his boys back, you know, he's staring him down. He's not having it. He knows Brook Lopez is just a clown, and I'm happy to call him a clown at this point. It was a clown move on the court, and then everything he said after the fact was even worse. Did you see his clip of like him compare, like he's like, do you know how like serial killers like, you know, pay attention to their dogs or something? And it was like, yeah, that headband spoke to me. I retweeted it with just the red flag emoji.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like,
well,
I think that was how I saw the clip, was you retweeting it. I was like,
yeah, literally.
Does he need therapy? Because I think he does.
Because I mean, I don't know if it's just because I'm a woman, but my first instinct was like, don't date him. I don't even know what his status is. Maybe he's married and he has a bunch of kids or what. But I was like, oh, don't date this guy. Do not date this guy. Yeah. Everyone needs to. You should not date this guy.
Or like athletes in general.
Yeah, probably athletes in general, but especially that. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna date an athlete, maybe just don't date one that likes themselves to having the mindset of a serial killer, even if it is just a quote unquote joke. It's pretty weird. It bombed. As someone who literally writes jokes, literally, the joke bombed.
Yeah, the two comedy writers here are like, no, that did not work. It got tossed in the garbage next.
Yeah. That joke bombed for sure. Yeah. So anyway, I'm happy to see Nick Nurse give him a stare down. It was the stare down I needed. You know, so earlier this year, me and Dana at Great Dane came up with the Nick Nurse Happy and Angry at Refs 2023 calendar. I came up with this calendar before the season started. Okay. So I didn't know that like half the fan base was going to want him fired. But, you know, to me, like the joy of being a Nick Nurse fan is watching him angry. Like it isn't just for the guitar playing and the good times. Like watching him angry makes me so happy. Yeah, it just does. And maybe that's like deep into my psychology, and maybe you shouldn't date me either. But
no, he's an interesting guy. He's loves cracking a joke in the media room. It's kind of funny.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I like hearing that.
Yeah. He's I feel, I don't know, sometimes the vibes obviously pre-game and post-game are a little different, but usually pre-game he's like in a good mood and like joking around with everyone. So yeah, I definitely feel the admiration towards him. He's a funny guy.
Oh, that's good. I mean, I saw that clip of him earlier this week where he was getting kind of annoyed with the press, with our local press. And he said like, no more effort questions. And he was like, are we good here? You know, but
I don't think I was there that day, but that's
why it happened, Chelsea.
Yeah, I know. Right. There. I know, it's so weird because I'm like, Nick Nurse definitely doesn't know who I am, but I'm also like one of like 5 or 6 women that like circulate through that room. So like, I don't know.
Maybe he does.
Maybe. I usually sit in the back. It's like, yeah.
Well, that's fair. I mean, all right. Well, Chelsea, thank you so much for joining me. I imagine Nick Nurse knows you or is familiar with you, or maybe just take a seat in the middle row. You know,
I'll move up a row next time.
Inch your way to the front. You know, I mean, I was the kid in high school that very much sat in the back of the class. I was a real back of the class kid, but you know,
good vibe.
Yeah, thank you. See, that's like, you know, that's another shot for all our listeners. That's one more drink in our vibes drinking game. But Chelsea, I
promise not to ask him any more effort questions. Not that I have, but yeah.
But now you know.
Now I know.
And you didn't have to learn the hard way. I don't know who asked him, but now you don't have to learn. You don't have to learn the hard way. Yeah. Chelsea, for all our listeners, let us know what you're up to and where people can find you on the internets.
Yeah. So my Instagram and Twitter is just my first name, last name, Chelsea Leite. And usually usually on both platforms. I post my work when it comes to sports, but I also do a lot of comedy around Toronto. So if you're into live comedy, I post a lot of that too. So find me on Twitter and Instagram are the two main ones. If you like writing and comedy and basketball.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chelsea.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.